Hello, everybody. You're welcome to today's edition of iTestify. This is a program where we come to share our victories by sharing our testimonies. The Bible said, and they overcame it by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of their testimony. That's a revelation that there is power in our testimony to displace the enemy. Another thing we need to know is that our testimonies are prophetic. It means that when people hear our testimony, they are able to experience the same victory. The Bible said, the testimony of Jesus Christ is the spirit of prophecy. So they have an interesting guest, a woman of God. She's an author, a product manager, an HR enthusiast, a speaker, and a life coach. She's many things and more. So her name is Eniola, and she's going to tell us about how she discovered her purpose. Hello, Eniola. Thank you for honoring my invitation.
Hello, sir. Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah,
Um, it's a yeah, an honor to be here.
it's an honor for me to interview you. Thank you for accepting my invitation. And please just tell us, what were you experiencing before you discovered the purpose, God's purpose for you? What was your experience?
Okay, so I will start by saying that I I come from a Christian home that is very heavy, if I can use that word, on moral values and instilling the right kind of values in us. They're particular about ensuring that we attend church, we go for this. It's like it was the upbringing was top notch. However, I got
Mm.
exposed to an environment that was quite different from where I was coming from. Attended a boarding house for my secondary school. So the setting over there was quite different from where I was coming from. I got to meet people that didn't have the same moral values as myself, people that had different kind of upbringing. So it was not left for me to decide on which stance I'm going to take. Is it the values that I've been taught from home or the values that I met here? I was at that point of confusion whereby I didn't know what to do. I was confused. It felt like every other person, I was like I was the only one standing, and every other person were doing something, and I was expected to fall in line, you know. And it was a major struggle for me, a major struggle of identity. I was not exactly sure of who I was. When you're not sure of what you are or who you represent in a place, you tend to compromise on quite a number of things. And I was at that particular phase in my life where I was unsure, I was uncertain of who I was or who I was meant to be. So it led to quite a number of compromises that for some reason I do regret some of those compromises that I had to make, because I felt like if I had the knowledge that I have then now, if I have the conviction that I have now then, I probably would not make those mistakes or those compromises that I made.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Eniola. And how did you navigate through that season? How did you navigate through that season to discover your purpose, God's purpose for you? Sorry.
Yeah, so I would first say grace just found me. I would start by saying that because without God's grace, I probably would not have been able to figure it all out. So God's grace found me, and He found me in the place of connecting me with people that could help me. You know, I when I left secondary school, I got to meet a certain individual that made me realize who I was and what God would have me do in this time and in this season. I got my clear conviction by through that process of meeting that person, having interaction with that person, because the person exposed me to certain things that I was not aware of before, certain knowledge that I was oblivious of before. God just used that person for me. And I would always say that people, man, is very, very important. For me personally, my working purpose one thing that stood out for me were the kind of individuals that God placed amongst me or around me, just to be like a light on my path, to tell me that, okay, Eniola, this is the way you ought to go. This is what you need to do at this time and in this season. And because of that person too, my work with God got a lot stronger. Like I said before, that while where I was coming from, I I'm in that phase of confusion. I didn't exactly know who I was, and that was because I didn't have like a strong relationship with God. I just lived life like as it came. I was not exactly standing in the right standing with Christ. So the breakthrough, or the first step to my breakthrough, was getting to know Christ in the true essence of it, not just about attending church or being self-righteous, but just knowing Christ for who he truly is. Because I usually say that the very first step in discovering yourself or discovering purpose is getting to know who God has called you to be. And that you can only know that when you know Christ himself, because it is in him that we find our identity. So how I was able to overcome that particular phase was by knowing Christ for myself. Knowing Christ for myself.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you. So when you got to know Jesus Christ, you got to know who you are. Since we were created in his
Mm.
image, if we are looking for who we are, you have to go to God himself. Thank you very much. I understand that your testimony, through your experience, you're also helping other people to discover God's purpose for them. Talk to us
Mm.
about it.
Okay, so you know the pain or the struggle that I had to go through, I felt like there is no way any other person should feel this way, or should feel confused, or have to make certain compromises that they ordinarily wouldn't want to. And about last year, I was just asking God, Lord, this same phase that I had to go through, what can we do to enable other people coming, behind us not to have to go through the same thing? And then the Holy Spirit said something to me. He said, while you went through that phase, you learned some things. I made you walk some paths. I made you meet some people. I made you come across some certain kinds of knowledge. How about you putting those things, those experiences together, and using it to help other people come in? I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. And let me say this fun fact: I'm not even a writer. I've never, I really ran away from the activity of writing because I felt it was too bothersome to always want to write. And it's when the idea of writing it came about, I debunked it at first because I felt like I was too lazy. I really didn't have time to have to be writing things down. And then through that process too, I learned the act of being patient and knowing that there is nothing that you cannot do unless you don't set your mind to do it. As far as your mind can see it, as far as your mind can, how do I put it? As far as your mind can build it inside of you, as far as your mind can see it, you can do it. And so, step by step, it was not easy, but step by step, I started documenting some thoughts down as I got the inspiration from the Holy Spirit. Started writing some things down. And before you know it, it became a whole book. And so the passion or the burden to ensure that other people do not find themselves in a confused state, making compromises that they would eventually regret. Because trust me, one thing that you do not want to live with for the rest of your life is regret. Having to regret actions, having to regret that you didn't do certain things, or having to regret that you did certain things is one feeling that you do not want to live with in your life. So that passion to see that young people, their eyes are open to who they are, who their identity is. Because I've realized that we live in a society whereby people are being constantly influenced, both negative and positively. And so there is a need for voices to arise in place of love, understanding the peculiarity of teenagers and adolescents to guide them, to mentor them on the path that is right. Because if we don't have these voices arise, we might just our teenagers might just end up getting confused, derailed, influenced negatively, and that is not what we want, and that is not what I want, you know. So yes, this was my passion that no, we can't keep living a life of confusion. We have to receive clarity, we have to receive precision to our working purpose, because this is where success begins from. Having a clear goal, having a clear purpose, having a clear sense of purpose, this is where a part of success, this is where it starts from.
Thank you very much. That was so powerful. So you have a book. What's the name of the book, and how can we get it?
Okay, so the title of the book is Journey to 20. Journey to 20. And no, it is not how I lived my life from age 1 to 20, because that's like a popular notion, misunderstanding that most people have when they hear the title. They feel like, oh, are you writing a biography of how you lived your life from age 1 to 20? No, that's not what it's about. The topic was conceived from a place of my targeted audience were teenagers and teenagers and adolescents, and the age bracket for that is from 1 to 20. So that is where the title Journey to 20 came from. So it's a book about purpose, receiving clarity in your working purpose. It's if I begin to go into the details of my book, you probably will not want to buy it anymore because you feel like you have all the details already. So I will not I will not give you guys the details. You can just send me a message. You can
Okay,
send
so
me a message
where can we
on
get the
my
book? Where
WhatsApp
can we get
contact.
the book? Okay.
Probably Brother Daniel will display the number in the comment section,
Yes.
or you can send me a DM on Instagram at Sunny underscore Eniola underscore Joy to get.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Eniola. So apart from what's it called, the book, do you also organize public speaking? Tell me about your public speaking engagement.
Um, well, for the speaking engagement, it's like a new thing. I've always been into speaking engagements right from when I was young. However, I think I had, you know, it became a frequent thing recently after I launched my book. So I do organize conferences, periodic conferences, because I have an initiative called Discovering You Initiative. We go from schools to schools to render lectures for young people, young teenagers, on how to discover purpose. So when it comes to like going into speaking, really, it's like a recent thing for me. Right after I launched my book, I started having a lot of speaking engagement with the help of God. We are here.
Thank you very much. So, have you had testimonies from people, either by from your speaking engagements or from your book, how they discovered purpose by reading your book or hearing your testimonies here?
Yes, yes. By the grace of God, God is God. I would always say that it is not by man; it is God that that drives conviction for every man. It's the Holy Spirit in us that drives conviction. It's the Holy Spirit that delivers, not any man. We men are just vessels that the Holy Spirit uses. So anytime I get testimonies, I'm just always grateful to God that yes, we have delivered one soul together, with the help of the Holy Spirit. So yes, I've had teenagers, I've had young people. In fact, I've had adults, because I remember there's a time where I went for a particular conference, and a woman, I think she should be in her mid 40s, and she came and said why, was accusing me that why did I title the book Journey to 20, that don't I know that I'm limiting the miracles for just people within that age bracket. And what about people that are, in their 40s and still have questions on their mind that needs to be answered? And then my conversation with her after the conference has been amazing. Sharing with me how she has a better walk with God, you know, how our walk with God has improved tremendously after reading my book. and how she has been able to choose the right kind of association to be among her. Because part of what I wrote in my book or taught in my book is how the art of making the right kind of friendship and the place of having the right kind of association, what it does in our working purpose. And so many other testimonies of how people have started getting conviction as to what God will have them do in this time and in this season. It's been awesome. Honestly, God has been faithful. God has been faithful.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your testimony. When I heard your testimony, first thing that came to mind was David, like I told you before this session, and how he overcame, like he
Mm,
defeated Goliath. Many times the journey of self-discovery can be so challenging. It's like a giant that needs to be defeated. So thank you for this
mm,
resource in your book and what you're sharing your testimony. I believe others will be inspired to seek the Lord enough to
mm,
know His purpose for them. God bless you,
mm.
Miss Eniola.
Thank thank you, sir. Thank you. It's such an honor to
Well,
be here. Thank you.
a pleasure. So, guys, thank you all for being part of today's session. I believe what you heard from her has inspired you, and the testimony she has shared will also be replicated in your life. So, meet next time. Bye, everybody.